I discovered my sister Emma's Instagram post at 2 in the morning while working late on a client presentation. The caption read, "Family vacation without the burden," with photos of our entire extended family laughing on a pristine beach resort. 523 likes already. My heart stopped as I realized I was the burden they were celebrating escaping from. Through tears blurring my vision, I typed, "Looks fun," and hit send before I could stop myself. But as I scrolled through Emma's stories with shaking hands, I spotted something that made me smile for the first time in weeks. The resort's letterhead on their dinner bill, Sunset Paradise Resort. Suddenly, everything changed. I stared at my laptop screen in my cramped studio apartment, unable to process what I was seeing. The fluorescent light above my kitchen table buzzed annoyingly as reality crashed down around me like a house of cards in a hurricane. 3 years ago, I had left my 6-figure marketing executive position at Morrison Industries, a Fortune 500 company, to care for our mother during her devastating battle with Alzheimer's disease. While Emma continued climbing the ranks in her real estate career selling million-dollar homes to tech executives, and our brother Jake pursued his law practice at a prestigious downtown firm, I became the full-time caregiver who watched our mother forget our names, one painful day at a time. The family initially expressed what seemed like genuine gratitude during those first few overwhelming months. Dad would pat my shoulder and say how proud he was of my sacrifice. Emma brought groceries and promised she'd help with the night shifts. Jake offered to handle Mom's legal affairs and medical insurance claims. But as months crawled into years and my savings account dwindled from $50,000 to nothing, then deeper into debt, their attitudes shifted like sand beneath my feet. Family dinners transformed from supportive gatherings into uncomfortable lectures about getting back out there and not wallowing in the past. Emma started making pointed comments about me choosing to be dependent instead of moving forward with my life. Dad began suggesting I was taking advantage of the situation and using Mom's illness as an excuse to avoid real responsibilities. Jake would arrive at family gatherings with stories about his latest courtroom victories, then look at me with barely concealed pity as I sat there in my discount store clothes, too exhausted to contribute to conversations about career achievements and vacation plans. They didn't see the 3 a.m. diaper changes when Mom forgot how to use the bathroom. They missed the tears I shed every morning as I watched this brilliant woman, who once ran her own accounting firm, struggle to remember how to brush her teeth. They weren't there during the endless doctor appointments, insurance battles, and heartbreaking moments when Mom looked at me like I was a stranger invading her home. Now scrolling through Emma's vacation photos at my kitchen table, surrounded by unpaid bills and empty coffee cups, I noticed details that made my stomach clench with a familiar ache. Designer luggage that cost more than my monthly rent, expensive seafood dinners at restaurants with ocean views, luxury spa treatments and private cabana rentals, deep-sea fishing excursions and helicopter tours over volcanic landscapes. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone and opened my banking app with growing dread. The screen loaded slowly, and then I saw it. A charge for $5,200 on the emergency credit card I had given Dad for Mom's medical expenses. The merchant name read Sunset Paradise Resort, Maui, Hawaii, the exact location where my family was currently celebrating their freedom from me. My phone buzzed incessantly with notifications as family, friends, and distant relatives commented on Emma's post, completely unaware that I hadn't been invited to this magical family reunion. My cousin Beth from Portland wrote, "So jealous of this amazing family time. You guys look so happy and relaxed." While my childhood neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, added, "The whole Martinez clan together at last love seeing this beautiful family bond." Each comment felt like another knife sliding between my ribs, twisting deeper with every exclamation point and heart emoji. These people had known me since I was 5 years old, had watched me graduate valedictorian from high school, had celebrated when I landed my first corporate job. Now they were unknowingly participating in my public humiliation, praising a family vacation that was specifically designed to exclude and hurt me. I clicked through more photos, studying each image like a detective examining evidence at a crime scene. There was Dad raising a tropical drink toward the camera with a genuine smile I hadn't seen in months. Jake, with his arm around his wife Sarah, both of them tan and carefree in matching resort bathrobes. Emma's twins, my 7-year-old nephews, Marcus and David, building elaborate sandcastles, while their grandmother watched from a beach chair. Wait, grandmother. My blood turned to ice as I realized Mom was there too, looking confused but peaceful in the Hawaiian sunshine. The woman I had spent 3 years caring for, who barely remembered my name anymore, had been deemed worthy of inclusion in this celebration of my exclusion. I realized with growing horror that this wasn't a spontaneous family getaway or last-minute decision. This was planned, organized, and executed with military precision, specifically to leave me behind. They had used my own emergency money, the credit card I had given them in good faith for Mom's medical needs, to fund their celebration of escaping the burden that was my existence. The timestamp on Emma's first photo showed they had arrived 3 days ago. 3 days of family bonding, shared meals, and memory making, while I sat in my apartment eating ramen noodles and working on freelance projects until my eyes burned from staring at the computer screen. But then something clicked in my brain, a memory surfacing like a life preserver in stormy seas. Sunset Paradise Resort. I knew that name. I knew it intimately. And suddenly, the pieces of a very different puzzle began falling into place. Unable to sleep with my mind racing like a hamster on a wheel, I continued my investigation into this family conspiracy. The kitchen clock ticked past 3 a.m. as I dove deeper into the digital evidence of my systematic exclusion. I discovered a Facebook group called Marina's Family Hawaii Planning that I had apparently been removed from 3 months earlier. Through my cousin Derek's carelessly public Instagram stories, I began piecing together the true scope of this organized effort to erase me from family life. Derek had posted a screenshot of group messages discussing taking a break from family stress and planning some drama-free quality time together. Another story showed a group video call with Emma, Jake, Dad, and several cousins discussing logistics for the stress-free vacation. My hands trembled as I scrolled through Derek's stories from 2 months ago, where he had accidentally posted a voice message from Emma saying, "Marina just brings everyone down with her constant negativity and victim mentality. We need some time to remember what it feels like to be a normal family again." The evidence painted a picture of months of careful planning and coordination behind my back. They had researched resorts, compared prices, coordinated schedules arranged for Mom's care during travel, and handled dozens of logistical details while deliberately keeping me in the dark. Unable to bear the uncertainty any longer, I started making phone calls to extended family members, my heart pounding with each number I dialed. The conversations that followed shattered what remained of my faith in family loyalty. My Aunt Patricia in Phoenix answered on the second ring, her voice groggy but concerned. "Marina, honey, it's 3 a.m. in California. Is everything okay with your mom?" "Patricia, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. What has Emma been telling the family about me?" The long pause that followed told me everything I needed to know before she even spoke. "Oh, sweetheart." Patricia sighed heavily. "Emma said you've been struggling with some emotional problems since you stopped working. She mentioned you've been resistant to putting your mom in professional care because you enjoy being the martyr in the family." The words hit me like physical blows to the chest. "What else?" "She told us you've been emotionally blackmailing the family, making everyone feel guilty for living their lives while you've trapped yourself in the caregiver role. She said you refuse to look for another job because you'd rather live off the family's sense of obligation." I gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. "And you believe this?" Patricia's voice grew smaller. "Honey, we didn't know what to believe. Emma showed us screenshots of texts where you were asking for money, and she said you'd become bitter and resentful toward everyone who wasn't sacrificing their career like you chose to do. After hanging up with Patricia, I called my Uncle Tom in Denver. His version of events was even worse. "Marina, I love you, but Emma and Jake have been worried sick about your mental state," he said carefully. "They told us you've been making concerning comments about feeling like your life is over and that you blame your mom for ruining your future." "I never said that, ever." "They showed us a group text where you wrote that caring for your mom was destroying your life and making you hate everything about your family." My mind raced trying to remember any message that could have been twisted into such an interpretation. Then I remembered a night 6 months ago when I had texted the family group chat, "This situation is destroying my savings and social life, and some days I feel like I'm losing myself completely. I hate that Mom's illness is tearing our family apart instead of bringing us together." They had taken my moment of vulnerable honesty about the difficulties of caregiving and weaponized it into evidence that I was an ungrateful, manipulative burden. Uncle Tom continued, his voice heavy with misguided concern. "Jake told us you've been refusing to consider professional care options because you want to maintain control over the family dynamics. He said you use your mom's condition to make everyone else feel guilty for having normal lives." The systematic character assassination was breathtaking in its scope and efficiency. My own brother, who visited Mom maybe twice a month and stayed for less than an hour each time, had convinced our extended family that I was manipulating the situation for personal gain. I called my cousin Jennifer in Seattle, my childhood confidant, who had been like a sister to me growing up. Surely she would see through these lies. "Marina, I've been wanting to talk to you about this," Jennifer said gently. "Emma reached out a few months ago because she was concerned about your isolation and depression. She said you've been pushing everyone away and creating conflict whenever the family tries to spend time together." "Creating conflict, how?" "She mentioned that you get upset whenever anyone suggests alternative care arrangements for your mom, and that you've been making family gatherings uncomfortable by constantly talking about how hard your life is compared to everyone else's." I thought back to the last few family dinners I had attended. Yes, I had been exhausted and probably not the most cheerful company. Yes, I had pushed back when Emma suggested moving Mom to a memory care facility that cost $8,000 a month. And yes, I had been frustrated when Jake complained about his demanding work schedule to someone who was working 18-hour days between caregiving and freelance projects. But I had never manipulated anyone or demanded special treatment. I had simply been drowning and hoping my family would throw me a life preserver instead of criticizing my swimming technique. Jennifer continued, "Emma said the family decided to take this trip without you because they needed to reconnect without walking on eggshells around your emotional needs. She was hoping some time apart might help you gain perspective on the situation." As dawn light filtered through my apartment windows, I realized this wasn't just about one vacation. This was about a months-long campaign to rewrite history and reframe my sacrifices as character flaws. My family had systematically poisoned every relationship I had with people who had known and loved me my entire life. They had convinced our extended family that I was unstable, manipulative, and self-pitying. They had painted my financial struggles as laziness and my emotional exhaustion as attention-seeking. They had taken my most vulnerable moments and twisted them into weapons against my character. But as I sat there surrounded by the wreckage of my reputation and relationships, something else began crystallizing in my mind. Sunset Paradise Resort. That name wasn't just familiar, it was intimately connected to a chapter of my life that my family knew nothing about. A chapter that was about to become very relevant to their current situation. With my heart racing and my mind clearing for the first time in hours, I rushed to my bedroom closet and pulled out a dusty cardboard box labeled Consulting Files. My hands shook with anticipation as I rifled through portfolios, contracts, and recommendation letters until I found what I was looking for. There it was, a thick folder marked Sunset Paradise Resort, Complete Operational Restructuring Project. I opened it with reverent care, and the memories came flooding back like a dam bursting. 2 years ago, while caring for Mom during the day and watching her sleep at night, I had taken on freelance hospitality consulting work to keep my professional skills sharp and generate desperately needed income. My biggest and most challenging client had been Sunset Paradise Resort in Maui, which was hemorrhaging money due to terrible management, scathing online reviews, and a viral social media disaster involving food poisoning at a high-profile wedding. The resort owner, James Morrison, had found me through a professional networking group when his family's 3-generation business was exactly 3 weeks away from bankruptcy. His grandfather had built the resort in the 1970s, his father had expanded it during the tourism boom of the 80s and 90s, and James had inherited what should have been a gold mine in paradise. Instead, he had inherited a nightmare of incompetent staff, outdated systems, angry guests, and mounting debts that threatened to destroy his family's legacy forever. I remembered our first video call vividly. James had looked like a man facing execution, his usually confident demeanor replaced by desperate exhaustion. "Marina, I've tried 3 different consulting firms and none of them could figure out how to turn this around. We're losing $20,000 a week and I'm running out of options." What followed were the most intense 3 months of my professional life. While my family slept comfortably in their beds, I worked from midnight until 6 a.m., completely restructuring every aspect of Sunset Paradise's operations, from my kitchen table. I redesigned their entire guest experience from check-in to check-out. I rewrote their staff training manuals, created new customer service protocols, and personally coached their management team through video calls at 3 a.m. Hawaiian time. I developed a comprehensive social media recovery strategy, designed new marketing campaigns, and even wrote personalized apology letters to every guest who had left a negative review. The transformation was nothing short of miraculous. Within 6 weeks, guest satisfaction scores had jumped from 2.8 stars to 4.6 stars. Occupancy rates climbed from a catastrophic 20% to a robust 95%. Revenue increased by 300%, and the resort went from bankruptcy to profitability in less than 4 months. I flipped through testimonial letters from guests who praised the complete transformation of their experience. There were thank you notes from staff members whose jobs I had saved, and industry recognition from hospitality magazines that featured Sunset Paradise as a comeback story of the year. But the letter that meant the most to me was James Morrison's personal recommendation, written in his own handwriting on resort letterhead. Marina Martinez is not just a consultant, she is the guardian angel who saved our family legacy. Her brilliant strategies, tireless work ethic, and genuine compassion for our team transformed our failing business into the most successful resort in our region. She accomplished in 3 months what other consultants couldn't do in 3 years. Any business would be fortunate to work with her. James had insisted on paying me double our contracted rate, and when I protested, he had said, "Marina, you saved 3 generations of my family's work. You preserved the livelihoods of 47 employees. You gave my children their inheritance back. There's no amount of money that could properly repay what you've done for us." I had used every penny of that payment for Mom's experimental treatments that insurance wouldn't cover, cutting-edge therapies that weren't yet approved by Medicare, but offered hope for slowing the progression of her Alzheimer's. Those treatments had given us 8 more precious months together before Mom passed away, peacefully last spring, surrounded by family who still saw her as a burden rather than the brilliant, loving woman she had been. Now, as I sat holding James's recommendation letter, I realized the cruel irony of the situation. My own family was vacationing at the resort I had single-handedly saved from bankruptcy, using my emergency money to celebrate their escape from the daughter and sister who had sacrificed everything for people who didn't even know her true worth. They had no idea that Marina Martinez was considered a legend at Sunset Paradise Resort. They didn't know that my photo hung in the resort's main office with a plaque reading, "Consultant of the Year." They couldn't imagine that James Morrison had kept a standing guest suite reservation in my name as a thank you gift that I had never had time to use. But they were about to find out. I found James Morrison's personal cell phone number in my contacts saved under JM Sunset Paradise Owner. We had developed a genuine friendship during those intense months of collaboration, bonding over our shared love of problem solving and our dedication to excellence in hospitality. My finger hovered over the call button as a plan began forming in my mind, a plan that would give my family the education they desperately needed about the real Marina Martinez. The clock on my nightstand read 6:30 a.m. in California, which meant it was 3:30 a.m. in Hawaii. But I remembered that James was an early riser who often started his day at 4 a.m. to review operations reports and walk the property before guests woke up. I took a deep breath and pressed call. James answered on the second ring, his voice warm and alert despite the early hour. "Marina, this is a wonderful surprise. How are you holding up, sweetheart?" Hearing his genuine concern and affection made tears spring to my eyes. James Morrison, a successful businessman I had met through work, showed more care for my well-being in those first 5 words than my own family had expressed in months. "James, I'm okay. Well, actually, I'm not okay, but I'm hoping you can help me understand something." I took a steadying breath. "I know this might sound strange, but do you currently have guests named Martinez staying at your resort?" Martinez. James paused, and I heard the sound of footsteps on what I knew was the teak flooring of his private office. "Actually, yes. We do have a Martinez family checked in through the end of the week. Why do you ask? Do you know them?" My heart pounded like a bass drum in my chest. "James, that's my family. My sister, my father, my brother, and my mother. They planned a vacation specifically to exclude me, and they're using my emergency credit card to pay for it." The silence on the other end stretched for several long seconds. When James spoke again, his voice had shifted from warm friendliness to sharp concern. "Marina, please tell me you're joking." "I wish I were." I explained the Instagram post, the family conspiracy, and the devastating discovery about the credit card charges, while James listened with growing anger. "This is unbelievable," he said finally. "After everything you sacrificed for your family, after all the work you did while caring for your mother, they're celebrating escaping from you at the resort you saved." "It gets worse, James. I think they've been lying to your staff about who they are and why they're there." "What do you mean?" I took another deep breath before continuing. "My family has been telling people that I'm unstable and manipulative. I'm worried they might be using my caregiving situation to gain sympathy or special treatment from your team." James was quiet for a moment before speaking in a voice I had never heard from him before, cold, professional, and slightly dangerous. "Marina let me conference in my head of security. Lisa Chang has been dealing with some particularly difficult guests this week, and I'm starting to suspect we need to connect some dots." Within seconds, a crisp, efficient voice joined the call. "Good morning, Mr. Morrison. Lisa Chang speaking." "Lisa, I have Marina Martinez on the line. You remember Marina? She's the consultant who saved our resort 2 years ago." "Of course, Marina. It's wonderful to hear from you. Your work here was absolutely legendary." James continued, "Lisa, we currently have guests named Martinez staying with us. Can you tell Marina about any issues you've been documenting with that particular family?" Lisa's tone immediately became more formal and careful. "Actually, yes. We've been building a case to potentially ban the Martinez family from the property due to multiple staff complaints and documented incidents of abusive behavior." My stomach dropped. "Abusive behavior?" "The female guest, Emma Martinez, has been extremely demanding and disrespectful to our housekeeping staff," Lisa explained. "Yesterday, she screamed at one of our newest team members, a 19-year-old named Sophia, because fresh towels weren't delivered to her cabana within 15 minutes of her request. She called Sophia lazy and incompetent and demanded that we fire her immediately." I closed my eyes, mortified but not surprised. Emma had always had a cruel streak when dealing with service workers, treating restaurant servers and retail employees like they existed solely for her convenience. Lisa continued her litany of complaints. The older male guest, Robert Martinez, has been sending back meals at our beachside restaurant, claiming the food is substandard and demanding that we comp his entire tab because he's too important to pay full prices like regular tourists. He made our head chef cry yesterday by telling her that her signature seafood dish tasted like garbage and that she should be ashamed to serve it to paying customers. Dad's entitled behavior wasn't shocking either, but hearing it described by a professional who dealt with difficult guests regularly made me realize how far beyond normal boundaries my family had crossed. The younger male guest, Jake Martinez, has been making inappropriate comments to our female staff members. Lisa added, he told one of our pool attendants that she should consider modeling instead of wasting her beauty on manual labor, and he's been asking personal questions about their relationship status and living arrangements. My brother, the lawyer who should have known better than anyone about workplace harassment, was apparently treating the resort staff like his personal dating pool. But here's the part that really concerns me, Lisa said, her voice growing harder. They've been telling other guests and staff members that they have a disabled family member at home who they need a break from caring for. They've used this story to gain sympathy and justify demanding special accommodations, including accessible parking spaces and priority seating at restaurants. The blood in my veins turned to ice water. They're using me as their sob story. It appears so. Emma Martinez told our concierge that their family has been trapped for years caring for a severely depressed and demanding relative, and that this vacation was their first chance to remember what normal family life feels like. James's voice cut through my shock like a blade. Lisa, please tell Marina about the incident with the other guests yesterday. Yesterday afternoon, the Martinez family complained to our front desk about another guest family who they claimed was ruining their vacation experience. They demanded that we ask this other family to leave the pool area because the sight of them was too reminiscent of their problems at home, and they didn't want any reminders of their stressful family situation. What was wrong with the other family? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Nothing whatsoever. It was a young mother from Oregon with her 8-year-old daughter who has cerebral palsy. The little girl was having a wonderful time in the pool with her adaptive flotation devices, and her mother was one of the sweetest, most gracious guests we've ever hosted. I felt physically sick. My family had tried to have a disabled child removed from a pool area because she reminded them too much of their burden back home. When we politely declined to ask the Oregon family to leave, Emma Martinez became irate. Lisa continued. She threatened to leave negative reviews on every travel website unless we showed proper consideration for guests dealing with family trauma. James spoke up, his voice tight with controlled fury. Marina, I want you to know that we would never ask a guest to leave because of another guest's prejudices. The Oregon family is having a beautiful vacation, and they have no idea that anyone complained about them. Thank you for protecting them, I whispered. Marina, James said firmly, I've made a decision. I want you to come here, tonight, as my personal guest. You saved this resort, you sacrificed everything for your family, and you deserve to see what your work accomplished. Plus, I think there's something poetic about you being here when we handled this situation with your family. My heart leaped with a mixture of terror and exhilaration. James, I can't just fly to Hawaii. I don't have the money for a last-minute ticket, and I don't have any vacation clothes and— Marina, he interrupted gently. Do you remember the standing reservation I kept in your name, the one you never had time to use? You mentioned something about that, but I thought, it's called the Marina Martinez Suite. It's our finest oceanfront accommodation, and it's been waiting for you for 2 years. As for the flight, consider it part of your consulting fee that we never finished paying you. Within an hour, James had arranged everything. A first-class ticket to Maui departing that evening, transportation from the airport, and a wardrobe consultation with the resort's personal shopping service. James, this is too much. Marina, this isn't charity. This is justice. Your family is about to learn who you really are and what you're actually worth. As I packed my small suitcase with hands that shook from adrenaline and anticipation, I received a text from James. The Martinez family just demanded that we remove a guest from the pool area who looks too much like their problematic relative back home because they don't want any reminders of their family stress. The guest they complained about was a young mother with her autistic son who's been having the time of his life in our sensory-friendly pool program. I stared at the message, my resolve hardening into something unbreakable. My family wasn't just cruel to me, they were cruel to anyone who reminded them of vulnerability, disability, or the need for compassion. Tomorrow morning, they were going to meet the real Marina Martinez, and I had a feeling it was going to be a meeting they would never forget. My plane touched down in Maui at 11:30 p.m. local time, and I was greeted at the gate by Thomas James's personal assistant, holding a sign with my name written in elegant script. As we drove through the tropical darkness toward Sunset Paradise Resort, Thomas filled me in on the latest developments with my family's behavior. Mr. Morrison wanted you to know that your family's conduct has escalated since your phone call this morning, Thomas said as we wound through palm-lined roads. They've now filed formal complaints against 3 different staff members demanding that we fire our head of housekeeping, our pool manager, and one of our restaurant servers. My stomach clenched with each new revelation. What did they do wrong? According to your sister Emma, the head of housekeeping failed to properly arrange the fruit basket in their suite. She claimed the pineapple was positioned incorrectly and that this showed a lack of attention to detail that was unacceptable for a resort of this caliber. I rubbed my temples, feeling a familiar headache building behind my eyes. Emma had always been obsessed with minute details when they served her narrative of being superior to service workers. Your father complained about our pool manager because she wouldn't allow him to reserve the entire adult-only hot tub for his family's exclusive use, Thomas continued. When she explained that the facilities are available to all guests on a first-come, first-served basis, he told her she was clearly new to dealing with VIP clientele and demanded to speak to her supervisor. And the restaurant server. Your brother Jake told her that her recommendation of our signature seafood special was obviously a way to upsell tourists and that she should stick to serving drinks and leave the thinking to the customers. When she politely offered alternative menu options, he accused her of being argumentative and refusing to take direction from guests. As we pulled into the circular driveway of Sunset Paradise Resort, I was struck by how beautiful the property looked in the moonlight. Soft landscape lighting illuminated carefully maintained tropical gardens, and the sound of waves crashing against the nearby beach created a peaceful symphony that should have been soothing. Instead, I felt like a general preparing for battle. James was waiting for me in the elegant open-air lobby, and he immediately wrapped me in a warm hug that nearly brought me to tears. "Marina, welcome home." Home. When was the last time anyone had called anywhere I was staying home? He led me through the resort, pointing out improvements and additions that had been implemented since our collaboration 2 years earlier. "The guest satisfaction program you designed is still our foundation," he said proudly. "We've maintained our 4.8-star rating, and we're booked solid through the next 18 months. James, this is incredible. You've expanded so much. We could afford to expand because you saved us from bankruptcy and taught us how to succeed," he replied simply. "Marina, I want you to understand something important. You're not just a former consultant to us. You're family. You're the person who preserved the legacy my grandfather built and gave my children their inheritance back." We stopped outside a suite with a carved wooden sign reading Marina Martinez Guest Suite, reserved for our guardian angel. I stared at the sign, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. "You actually named it after me?" "We sure did. And tomorrow morning, your biological family is going to discover that the woman they've been treating like a burden is one of the most respected people at this resort." James opened the door to reveal a stunning oceanfront suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the beach, where my family had been taking their celebratory photos. The sitting area was decorated with professional photos of the resort's transformation, including several shots of me working with staff members during the renovation project. The view from your private balcony looks directly down on the beach area where your family has been spending their time, James said with a slight smile. I thought you might appreciate that particular coincidence. I walked out onto the balcony and looked down at the exact stretch of sand where Emma had posed for her family vacation without the burden photo. Tomorrow morning, I would be looking down at them from the suite that bore my name in the resort I had saved. James, I need you to know that I'm not here for revenge. I just want them to understand who I really am and what I've actually accomplished. Marina, after what they've put you through, I think you're entitled to a little dramatic justice, he replied. But I understand your approach and will handle this with class. James left me to settle in, but not before handing me a thick folder. This contains copies of every guest complaint your family has generated security footage of their behavior toward our staff and documentation of their false claims about their family situation. Tomorrow morning, we're going to have a conversation with them about resort policies and guest conduct expectations. I spent the next hour reviewing the evidence James had compiled, and it painted a picture of entitlement and cruelty that was even worse than I had imagined. Security cameras had captured Emma berating a housekeeping supervisor for taking too long to deliver extra pillows. Video footage showed Dad demanding that a restaurant manager personally apologize for substandard service when his lunch arrived 5 minutes later than he expected. Audio recordings from the front desk revealed Jake making inappropriate comments about female staff members' appearances and asking invasive personal questions. But the most damning evidence was a recorded conversation between Emma and another guest, where my sister had described me as the family burden who refuses to get professional help for her mental health issues, and claimed that I had sabotaged every family gathering for years with manipulative behavior and constant demands for attention. As I sat on my balcony overlooking the beach where my family slept peacefully in their beachfront suite, I realized that tomorrow would be about more than just revealing my professional achievements. It would be about standing up for every person they had mistreated, every service worker they had demeaned, and every vulnerable individual they had shown prejudice against. My family was about to learn that actions have consequences, and that the burden they had been celebrating their escape from was actually the guardian angel who would save the very paradise where they were vacationing. I fell asleep that night to the sound of waves against the shore, more at peace than I had felt in months. I woke at sunrise and spent the morning watching my family from my balcony as they began their day on the beach below. Emma was already posing for more Instagram content, directing Dad to take multiple shots of her in different bikinis against the backdrop of the crystal blue ocean. Jake was arguing with a cabana attendant about towel service, while his wife Sarah tried to mediate the conversation. Mom sat quietly in a beach chair, looking confused but peaceful in the Hawaiian sunshine. From my elevated vantage point, I could see the entire scene playing out like a movie, and I noticed things that would have been invisible from ground level. The resort staff members were maintaining professional smiles while dealing with my family, but their body language revealed their discomfort and frustration. Other guests were giving my family a wide berth, clearly sensing the negative energy that surrounded them. At 10 a.m., James appeared at my door with a carefully crafted plan. "Are you ready for this, Marina? Because once we start this process, there's no going back." "I've been ready for 3 years," I replied, surprised by the steadiness in my own voice. "Perfect. Here's how we're going to handle this with grace and maximum impact." James explained that he would approach my family's beach area with resort security to discuss guest conduct policies and address the complaints that had been filed against them. I would arrive separately, ostensibly as a resort guest, enjoying a morning walk along the beach. "The key is timing," James said. "We want them to see you before they understand your connection to the resort. Let them experience the shock of your presence first, then we'll reveal the context." I spent an hour getting ready, choosing a flowing white sundress from the resort's boutique that made me feel confident and elegant. The woman looking back at me in the mirror was not the exhausted, defeated caregiver my family had been dismissing for years. She was poised, successful, and absolutely done with accepting less than she deserved. At 11:30, I made my way down to the beach, my heart pounding with anticipation and nervous energy. I could see James and two security officers approaching my family's cabana from the opposite direction, their formal demeanor indicating that this was official resort business. Emma spotted me first as I walked across the sand in their direction, her face draining of all color like someone had opened a drain in her cheeks. She grabbed Dad's arm urgently, pointing in my direction. Marina. Emma's voice carried across the beach, sharp with disbelief and something that might have been fear. What are you doing here? I continued walking toward them with measured steps, channeling every ounce of confidence I had learned during my years in corporate management. Good morning, Emma. I'm enjoying a vacation. Dad stood up from his beach chair, his expression shifting from confusion to anger. Marina, what kind of game are you playing? How did you even get here? And how can you afford to stay at a resort like this? Jake joined the confused interrogation, his voice accusing. Did you follow us here? This is seriously disturbing behavior even for you. Before I could respond, James appeared at my side with his professional entourage, his voice carrying the authority of someone who owned everything around us. Good morning, Martinez family. I'm James Morrison, owner of Sunset Paradise Resort. I believe you've met my dear friend and honored guest, Marina Martinez. The silence that followed was so complete I could hear waves lapping against the shore 50 yards away. Emma was the first to break the stunned quiet, her voice rising to a pitch that attracted attention from other beach guests. Friend? What do you mean friend Marina's nobody special? She's just our family burden who can't handle real life. James's expression shifted to something I had never seen before, cold professional fury mixed with protective anger. When he spoke, his voice was loud enough for everyone within a 30-foot radius to hear clearly. I'm sorry, did you just call Marina Martinez nobody special? James took a step forward, his posture radiating the confidence of a successful businessman who was about to deliver a lesson in respect. Are you referring to the Marina Martinez, who single-handedly saved this resort from bankruptcy 2 years ago, the brilliant consultant who transformed our failing business into the most successful property in this region? Other guests had stopped their conversations and were openly watching the drama unfold. I could see smartphones appearing as people sensed they were witnessing something extraordinary. Emma's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. That's impossible. Marina's been unemployed for 3 years. She's been living off family charity. Unemployed, James laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. Marina Martinez is one of the most sought-after hospitality consultants on the West Coast. While you've been enjoying your comfortable lives, she built a thriving consulting business from scratch while simultaneously caring for your mother with Alzheimer's disease. Dad found his voice, though it cracked slightly. You must be confused. Marina gave up her career. She's been dependent on family support. The only thing I'm confused about, James replied, his voice growing louder, is how a family could be so blind to the extraordinary achievements of their own daughter and sister. Jake tried to take control of the situation, his lawyer training kicking in. Look, I don't know what Marina has told you, but she's been struggling with emotional problems and hasn't worked in years. James turned to address not just my family, but the growing audience of resort guests who were watching the confrontation unfold. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to meet Marina Martinez, the guardian angel who saved Sunset Paradise Resort. 2 years ago, this woman worked 18-hour days for 3 months to completely restructure our operations, retrain our staff, and transform our guest experience from the ground up. He gestured toward the beautiful resort surrounding us. Every improvement you see, every detail that makes this place special, every reason this resort exists today, instead of being a pile of rubble, that's because of Marina Martinez's brilliant mind and tireless dedication. Emma's face had progressed from pale to bright red. This is insane. You're lying to defend her. Am I? James pulled out his phone and held it up so everyone could see the screen. "This is the Marina Martinez guest suite, our finest oceanfront accommodation. It's been reserved in her name for 2 years as a thank you for saving our family's legacy." He swiped to another photo. "This is the plaque in our main office honoring Marina as our Consultant of the Year. And this," he swiped again, "is the recommendation letter I wrote calling her one of the most talented professionals I've ever worked with." The crowd of onlookers began murmuring among themselves, and I heard someone whisper, "That's amazing," while another voice said, "What a remarkable woman." Dad's bluster was fading fast. "But she was caring for our mother. She couldn't have been working." "She was doing both," James replied firmly. "While you were sleeping comfortably in your beds, Marina was working until dawn to save our resort and then spending her days caring for your mother with devotion and love. She used every penny we paid her to cover your mother's experimental treatments that insurance wouldn't approve." Mom, who had been sitting quietly through this entire exchange, suddenly spoke up in a clear, lucid voice that surprised everyone. "Marina worked at night while taking care of me." I knelt down beside Mom's chair, taking her hand gently. "Yes, Mom. I was trying to keep my career alive while making sure you were safe and comfortable." Mom's eyes focused on me with a clarity I hadn't seen in months. My smart girl, always so smart and hardworking. Emma's voice cracked as she tried to maintain her narrative. "But you said you were unemployed. You said you had no money." I said I was financially struggling because I was using my consulting income to pay for Mom's care instead of rebuilding my savings. I replied calmly, "I never said I was unemployed. You just assumed that because I wasn't working a traditional 9-to-5 job, I wasn't working at all." James addressed the crowd again, his voice carrying across the beach. "This family used Marina's emergency credit card to pay for this vacation that was specifically planned to exclude her. They celebrated their escape from the woman who sacrificed her savings, her social life, and her comfort to care for their mother while building one of the most successful consulting businesses in the hospitality industry." The murmur from the watching crowd grew louder, and I heard someone say, "That's horrible," while another voice added, "She deserves so much better." Jake made one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "Look, we didn't know about any consulting work. Marina never told us." "You never asked," I said simply. "You saw my exhaustion and assumed it meant failure. You saw my financial struggles and assumed it meant laziness. You saw my dedication to Mom and assumed it meant I had given up on having a life. But most importantly," James added, his voice cutting through any remaining confusion, "your family's behavior toward our staff this week has been documented and is completely unacceptable. You've berated housekeeping, demeaned restaurant servers, harassed female employees, and even tried to have a disabled child removed from our pool area." Emma's face went white again. "We never did that." James nodded to his security officers who produced tablets displaying video footage. "We have everything documented. Your conduct has violated multiple resort policies, and frankly, you've shown a level of entitlement and cruelty that has no place in a community built on hospitality and respect." The watching crowd had grown to include nearly 50 people, and their disapproval of my family's behavior was becoming vocal. Someone called out, "That's disgusting behavior," while another voice shouted, "How could you treat your own sister like that?" Dad looked around, desperately realizing they had lost control of the narrative completely. "Marina, we can explain. We didn't understand." "No," I said quietly, but my voice carried clearly across the silent beach. "You didn't want to understand. Understanding would have required admitting that your assumptions about my worth were wrong." James stepped forward for his final statement. "Due to the documented mistreatment of our staff, false claims about family circumstances, and behavior that conflicts with our community values, the Martinez family is no longer welcome at Sunset Paradise Resort. You have 2 hours to check out and leave the property." The crowd actually applauded. The aftermath of my family's public humiliation unfolded quickly and with surgical precision. Resort security escorted them from the beach, while other guests continued to watch and whisper among themselves. Several people approached me to express their admiration for my grace under pressure and their sympathy for the treatment I had endured. A woman from Seattle named Catherine told me, "I've been watching your family's behavior all week, and I was horrified by how they treated the staff. Now I understand why they were so cruel. They've been practicing on you for years." A retired executive from Phoenix named Robert shook his head in disbelief. "Young lady, what you accomplished while caring for your mother is extraordinary. Most people couldn't handle either responsibility alone, much less both simultaneously." Their validation felt like balm on wounds I hadn't realized were still bleeding. As my family packed their belongings under security supervision, Emma attempted one final manipulation by posting a bitter Instagram story claiming they were being harassed by corrupt resort management and targeted for standing up for family values. Her strategy backfired spectacularly when other guests who had witnessed the entire confrontation posted their own videos with hashtags like. Within hours, Emma's attempt at victimization had generated a viral conversation about family members who sacrifice for others without recognition, and the hashtag. That evening, as I sat in the Marina Martinez suite watching the sunset paint the ocean in shades of gold and coral, I received a phone call that would change everything. "Marina, this is your father." Robert's voice was broken, stripped of all the entitled bluster I had grown accustomed to over the past 3 years. For the first time in recent memory, he sounded like the dad who had taught me to ride a bike and helped me with algebra homework. "Dad." "Marina, we're sitting in our hotel room near the airport and we've been talking for hours. We've been researching your consulting business online and we found your website, your client testimonials, your industry awards." His voice cracked. "We had no idea." I waited in silence, giving him space to continue. "We found articles about you in hospitality magazines. We saw recommendations from Fortune 500 companies. We discovered that you've been featured as a case study in business schools for your innovative restructuring strategies." He paused, struggling with words. "Marina, you're not just successful. You're brilliant. You're more accomplished now than you ever were in corporate America." "Why are you telling me this, Dad?" "Because we owe you an apology that's 3 years overdue, and because we need you to know that we finally understand what we almost lost." Over the next hour, the truth slowly emerged through phone calls from each family member. They had been so consumed with their own inconvenience during Mom's illness that they had never bothered to learn about my consulting work or understand the financial sacrifices I was making. They had seen my exhaustion and stress as weakness rather than recognizing the superhuman effort required to balance caregiving with building a freelance career from scratch. Emma called next, crying so hard I could barely understand her words. "Marina, I found your LinkedIn profile and your professional portfolio. You have testimonials from dozens of resorts and hotels calling you a genius and a miracle worker. I've been telling people you were a failure while you were actually building something amazing." "Emma." "No, let me finish. I looked up the consulting rates for hospitality restructuring and I realized you were probably earning more per project than I make in 6 months of real estate sales. While I was judging you for being unemployed, you were running a more successful business than any of us." Jake's call came last, his lawyer's precision evident even through his obvious shame. "Marina, I did a professional background check on you not to invade your privacy, but to understand the scope of what I missed. Your consulting firm has a 98% client retention rate and a waiting list of potential clients. You're booked solid for the next 14 months. You checked up on me. I showed Mom your professional achievements on my tablet. She had no idea you'd been working this whole time. She thought you were unemployed and depressed, struggling with the transition from corporate life." His voice grew smaller. "We all thought you'd given up on having a career. And instead, you built something better than what you left behind, and you did it while caring for our mother with more love and dedication than she had any right to expect." The next morning brought the most surprising development of all. My entire family appeared in the resort lobby at 8 a.m., having booked rooms at a nearby hotel at their own expense. They approached me tentatively like children who had broken something precious and weren't sure if forgiveness was possible. "Well, we want to start over," Dad said, his voice heavy with genuine regret. "We want to understand who you really are and what you've accomplished. We want to learn about your business, hear about your clients, and figure out how to support you properly." Emma stepped forward with her phone in her hands. "Marina, I deleted yesterday's Instagram story and replaced it with something I should have posted years ago." She showed me her new post, a photo of me working late at my kitchen table during Mom's illness, taken during one of her rare visits to my apartment. The caption read, "This is my sister Marina. While I was sleeping peacefully, she was working 18-hour days to save failing businesses and care for our mother with Alzheimer's. She built a thriving consulting company from our kitchen table and used every penny to pay for Mom's medical care. Family isn't about who's the easiest to be around, it's about who shows up when life gets hard. Marina showed up for all of us and we failed to show up for her. I'm proud to be related to the strongest, smartest, most selfless woman I know." The post already had over 2,000 likes and hundreds of comments from people sharing their own stories about undervalued family caregivers. Jake spoke up, his professional demeanor replaced by genuine humility. "Marina, we want to spend this week actually getting to know you as an adult professional, not just as the little sister we remember from childhood. We want to hear about your clients, your strategies, your goals for the business. And we want to understand how we can help you succeed instead of assuming you need us to rescue you," Emma added. Mom, who was having one of her increasingly rare lucid periods, took my hand and looked directly into my eyes. "Marina, my brilliant daughter, I'm so proud of what you built while taking care of me. I just wish I could remember it better." "It's okay, Mom. You don't need to remember the work. You just need to know that I loved caring for you and that everything I accomplished was possible because you raised me to be strong and independent." Over the following week, my family underwent a transformation that felt nothing short of miraculous. They attended my business calls and watched me negotiate contracts with potential clients. They asked thoughtful questions about consulting strategies and marketing techniques. They apologized to every resort staff member they had mistreated and made generous donations to the Employee Assistance Fund. Most importantly, they began treating me like the accomplished professional I had become, instead of the struggling dependent they had imagined me to be. James offered me a permanent position as Sunset Paradise's Director of Operations, which would have allowed me to move to Hawaii and work in person with the team I had helped to create. It was a tempting offer that would have provided financial security and the chance to implement my strategies on a daily basis. But I realized I had already found my path. My consulting business was thriving beyond my wildest expectations, with a waiting list of clients and referrals pouring in from satisfied resorts across the hospitality industry. I was building something meaningful and profitable on my own terms, proving that success doesn't always look the way other people expect it to. On our last day together in Hawaii, Emma and I walked along the beach where she had originally posted her family vacation without the burden photo. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "Marina, I need you to know something," she said as waves lapped at our feet. "Being excluded from this trip was the best thing that could have happened to you." "What do you mean?" "If you had come with us as the family caregiver, we would have continued treating you like our responsibility instead of recognizing you as our equal. We needed to see you in your element, successful and independent, before we could understand who you really are." She paused, looking out at the horizon. "You're not our burden, Marina. You never were. You're our hero, and we were too selfish and narrow-minded to recognize it." As my family's plane departed for California and I prepared to extend my stay for a few more days of well-deserved rest, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this moment of vindication and understanding. I had started this week as the family burden, the failed executive who couldn't handle real life, the emotional manipulator who trapped herself in a caregiving role. I was ending it as Marina Martinez, successful consultant, devoted daughter and woman who finally knew her own worth. The real victory wasn't in my family's public humiliation or their forced acknowledgement of my achievements. The real victory was in refusing to accept their diminished perception of my value and demanding the respect I had always deserved. Sometimes the greatest justice isn't revenge, it's simply refusing to accept less than your worth and watching others rise to meet your standards. I returned home not as the family burden, but as Marina Martinez, successful consultant, loving daughter and woman who had finally learned to see herself through her own eyes rather than through the limitations others tried to place on her. And that transformation was worth more than any vacation could ever be. Have you ever felt undervalued by the people who should support you most? Have you found yourself questioning your own worth because others couldn't see your true value? I'd love to hear your stories about standing up for yourself and demanding the respect you deserve. Please share your experiences in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and subscribe for more stories about finding strength in unexpected places. Share this video with anyone who needs a reminder that their worth isn't determined by other people's ability to recognize it. Thank you for taking this journey with me, and remember, you are never the burden that someone else makes you feel like. You are valuable, capable, and deserving of love and respect exactly as you are. Until next time, keep standing up for yourself and never stop believing in your own extraordinary worth.